in your mind, what do you think we should be questioning? What do you think is missing in this moment?
Well, I guess I'll start first. People are absolutely right. Police systems have to be reformed. Demilitarization of the police structure has to happen, but that's not the core problem. And if people, I guess what really got me cranked up is to see a number of CEOs come out, and I'm happy that they are. And I think that maybe some of them are really sincere individually, but their analysis on just reforming police is shallow and way insufficient. The reason we have the police violence we have, in my view, is because we've had 50 years of what Haney Lopez, if you've read his book or either of his books, Dog Whistle Politics, Emerge Left, it's 50 years of strategic racism, where the corporations and the greedy, super wealthy have very consciously, very intentionally, very successfully divided us based on race. And if we don't take on the strategic racism, it goes on every day. Obviously Trump is the most blatant, but a lot of Democrats have been part of it. Bill Clinton with his, crime reform is first 3 strikes you're out, and then 1 strike you're out. If any member of your family was convicted of a crime, you were thrown out of public housing. Hillary Clinton talking about super predators. Jimmy Carter used dog whistle messages in his campaign. So it's really important to understand how deeply ingrained these messages are. One book that I think really crystallized it for me was Dying of Whiteness. And the stories of people who were tremendously negatively impacted by the system. This one guy was a cab driver in Tennessee, would rather go through the pain he was going through and die earlier than support. He said, I would never support Obamacare, and they called it Obamacare. It's a dog whistle message too, but would never support Obamacare because Black and brown people would take advantage of it. And that's the culture created by this strategic racism that has allowed this police violence to go on for so long. I mean, what they have done, going back to really Goldwater, Nixon era, they have really strategically decided that they can win more votes by dividing people by race. So they demonize Black and brown people, and they have provoked and stoked and increased the fear and anxiety of white people. And that's why, in my view, they have created this culture. Remember, this is 50 years of doing this. They've created this culture that has allowed this, tremendously wrong, this murder of Black and brown, this murdering of Black and brown people. And so if we don't build, Haney Lopez talks about building a multiracial supermajority, and I totally agree with that. And if we don't do that, by combating and defeating strategic racism by building cross-racial solidarity and race-class solidarity, then no police reform is going to change what's happening today if we don't dramatically change the culture. And the other thing I think is realistic, we can have an impact in this race-class narrative that SEIU, Haney Lopez, Annette Schenker, Osario, a bunch of progressive groups.
Demos is on the board. Demos on the board. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's great, and they're winning elections, but we should be really clear. It's 5 decades or more, really, of this strategic racism. We're not going to turn it around an election or two, or winning an election or two is not going to turn it around. We really have to build a structure of race and class solidarity that is committed to the long-term changing of the culture.
Wendy, let me just say one other thing too, because I want to make sure people talk about this. While it's good that CEOs and corporations are coming out against what just happened to George Floyd, we cannot let them divert this to be about a simple question of reforming the police. It's their dollars that have paid for and supported this messaging this racial dog whistle messaging that has divided us so badly and has taken white anxiety and white fear to the level it is and has demonized black and brown. So we really need to call them into question, to challenge them, say, yeah, this is great, but if you're really serious, then you've got to quit financially supporting, politically supporting the politicians who've been doing this for years and years. And again, while it's overwhelmingly the Republican Party was a conscious choice going back to the 60s by the Republican Party to get votes by dividing people by race, Democrats have played a part in it too, as I talked about earlier.